Black woman CEO humiliated by billionaire white family, then she cancels the $900 million deal. They invited her into their world, thinking she'd be honored just to breathe their air. They mistook her success for luck, her silence for obedience, her presence for permission. But when a black woman builds an empire from the ground up, she doesn't walk into legacy wealth to be tolerated. She walks in knowing the ground will shift when she leaves. At a remote mountain estate in Montana, over crystal glasses and veiled insults, one of America's wealthiest families made a grave mistake. They underestimated the woman they needed most. By the time they realized it, she'd already closed the door behind her. Where are you tuning in from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along for more true stories that will leave you inspired and speechless. Bell speech balloon thumbs up. Alicia Monroe had faced hostile boardrooms and subtle bias in skyscraper offices from San Francisco to Seoul. But nothing about the invitation in her hand felt like corporate posturing. The envelope was thick, creamy, hand-delivered, no digital trace. The Hollister Summit, it read, hosted by the Whitford family. A private weekend of strategic discussions and relationship building. No suits, no speeches. Just trust, firelight, and luxury. Big sky, Montana style. The Whitfords were American royalty. Oil, real estate, weapons manufacturing, aerospace, they touched everything. And now, logistics. Alicia's company, Neuralink Freight Systems, was leading the revolution in AI-powered shipping infrastructure. The Whitfords wanted in. A $900 million joint venture was on the table. But Alicia had built Neuralink from a dusty co-working space in Oakland into a multinational disruptor without help from old money. She didn't need legacy handouts. She was legacy in the making. Her assistant, Tamara Fields, side-eyed the invitation while folding Alicia's cardigan into a weekender bag. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Feels like one of those retreats where they want your brain but expect you to laugh at their jokes." Alicia gave her a wry smile. "They're getting a deal. Not a dinner guest." She landed in Big Sky on a brisk Thursday afternoon. A private airstrip, lined with black SUVs and security teams, opened onto a sprawling mountain compound carved straight from generational wealth. The estate screamed curated rustic charm, luxury pretending to be simple. A young man in a zip-up Patagonia vest met her curbside. "Ms. Monroe, welcome. I'm Carter. I'll take your bags." The family's finishing lunch on the east deck. "It's Alicia," she said, offering a firm handshake. He hesitated just long enough to notice, then grinned. "Right. Alicia. Glad you could make it." She followed him past tennis courts, luxury cabins, a whiskey distillery that probably cost more than her first funding round. There was something hollow in the air. Not just the altitude, something else. Something curated. When they reached the lodge, laughter echoed from a long teak table. Sunlight spilled across white linen shirts and Patagonia pullovers. The Whitfords looked like a lifestyle ad for old American wealth, all perfect teeth and perfectly casual wealth. At the head sat Richard Whitford Sr., a silver-haired monument of a man, still broad-shouldered at 74. Next to him was her point of contact, Grant Whitford, his son, mid-40s, tan, relaxed, and smug with the confidence of someone who never had to hustle. "Ms. Monroe," Grant called, standing quickly. "We were just debating AI's role in freight management. You're right on time." Alicia stepped onto the deck with calm grace. "Thank you. This property is breathtaking." Richard Sr. stood too, slower. His eyes scanned her with practiced detachment. "So you're the woman everyone's whispering about," he said, voice like gravel and bourbon. "Quite the reputation." "Hopefully a good one," Alicia replied, not breaking eye contact. "Oh, naturally," he said, waving vaguely. "We just weren't expecting." He didn't finish. "Well, come sit. There's wine." No one moved to pull out a chair. So Alicia did it herself. Conversations resumed. She sipped once from her glass, let the silence around her speak louder than the dialogue. She wasn't there to be liked. She was there to listen. But by sundown, she realized she'd have to do far more than that. The first evening was hosted in a glass-walled lounge that overlooked snow-brushed pines and the jagged peaks beyond. Inside, it was all curated charm. Charcuterie, a string quartet, candles flickering in antique holders. But beneath the hospitality was a different sort of fire, one Alicia recognized all too well. A social vetting disguised as conversation. "So, where'd you actually grow up?" asked Delilah Whitford Hayes, Richard Sr.'s daughter, as she twirled her rose. "East Oakland," Alicia answered without pause. Delilah cocked her head, amused. "And now you're here. About to strike a billion-dollar deal with us. That's impressive." The emphasis on us wasn't subtle. Alicia gave her a calm smile. "Hard work travels." Across the room, Grant cornered Tamara, mistaking her for a personal assistant. "What's your boss like when she's not all buttoned up?" he asked, grinning like it was harmless. "She's standing 10 feet away," Tamara replied flatly. He laughed, brushing it off. "Fair enough." Alicia saw it. She saw all of it. Later, in the billiards room, Trent Whitford, a cousin in his late 30s, leaned against the table and said, "Honestly, I was surprised when Grant said the CEO of Neuralink was you. I pictured someone different." "Different how?" Alicia asked, sipping her seltzer. He chuckled nervously. "You know, older. Maybe a guy. Definitely not someone who could pull off heels and a balance sheet." She smiled, just slightly. "I get that a lot. Usually right before someone tries to undercut my valuation." Silence fell. Only the crackle of the fireplace filled the pause. Back in her suite, Tamara entered wearing sweatpants and concern. "You all right?" Alicia sat brushing out her hair. "I'm fine. They're being clever. Not subtle, but clever." Tamara dropped onto the couch. "We can still leave. Blame altitude sickness. Take the jet, bounce before sunrise." Alicia chuckled. "Tempting. But no. They want to see if I'll dance for the deal. And I don't dance." The next morning was all outdoor bonding, skeet shooting and ATV rides. Alicia opted out, choosing to handle investor calls in the study instead. The guest office was a museum of mahogany and money. By mid-afternoon, she returned to the main lodge. Boots were scattered in the entryway. Laughter spilled from the kitchen. She crossed the foyer when a woman in a gray estate uniform hurried toward her. "Oh, I'm so sorry," the woman said breathlessly. "Are you one of the new caterers?" Alicia stared. "No, I'm not." The woman flushed. "Oh, I didn't mean." "You assumed," Alicia said gently but firmly. "It's fine. Happens all the time." And then she walked away. Slowly. Deliberately. Every footstep a rebuttal. That evening was a small dinner by the fire. Informal, they said. Intimate. Alicia dressed with care. Understated but sharp. Black slacks. A camel silk blouse. Her presence was her statement. She entered the West dining room just as Richard Sr.'s wife, Meredith Whitford, held up her empty wine glass. "Excuse me," Meredith said, not looking up. "Can you top off that carafe over there? And we're out of ice." Alicia paused, then stepped closer. "Ma'am," she said flatly. That's when Meredith looked up. Her face froze. Oh my goodness, I thought you were." "I'm not," Alicia said. Meredith fiddled with her blouse. "Of course. My mistake." No one apologized. Grant tried to laugh it off. "Mom, Alicia's the reason we even have a logistics division to talk about." But the damage was done. The sting had landed. Alicia took her seat without another word. As the meal went on, duck confit and roasted root vegetables, conversation turned to AI infrastructure and global markets. But beneath the talk of strategy, Alicia could feel it. The room didn't believe she belonged. Still, she answered their questions, corrected their assumptions. When Grant misquoted one of her public patents, she cited the source and date. Her voice was calm. Her notes, meticulous. At one point, Delilah leaned over. "I can't imagine how exhausting it must be, always proving yourself," she whispered. Alicia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's not exhausting. It's just familiar." That night, Alicia stood at her window, the Montana wind howling beyond the glass. She hadn't come for their approval. But something in the air told her, this wasn't just business. Tomorrow, they'd see what kind of woman they'd invited into their world. And it wouldn't be what they expected. Morning arrived wrapped in a veil of frost. The estate staff moved swiftly, brewing espresso and setting fires in stone hearths as if trying to warm the cold tension no one dared mention. Alicia was up before the sun, reviewing her strategy pitch in the quiet of her suite. She knew the slides by heart, but today wasn't about data. It was about control. The day's agenda was light, just a casual brunch, followed by relaxation time before the evening's big pitch. It was a subtle tactic, Alicia knew. Keep her softened, off balance, lulled by the illusion of ease. But she'd been in too many rooms like this to be fooled. She stepped into the main hall that afternoon to find laughter floating from the billiards room. Muddy boots had been left at the door, the air filled with the smell of smoked rosemary and cedar. She walked past it all, unnoticed by most, heading to her suite to make a final call. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Tamara. "They're back from the trails," she said, arms folded. "And guess what? I got mistaken for a valet this time." Alicia looked up, unsmiling. "Third time this week," Tamara added, then shrugged. "You ready?" Alicia sighed. "Ready enough." She opened her laptop, fingers resting on the keyboard. "Tell me again why we're still here?" Tamara asked. "Because this deal changes the market. Because if I walk now, they'll tell a version where I was difficult. Temperamental. Couldn't play ball." Tamara leaned against the doorframe. "But you already know what they're about." "Hell, I knew after dinner #1. Alicia closed her laptop. "They need this partnership, but they don't want to need me. They want the tech, the edge, the growth. But they don't want to shift the culture to get it." "And you're still going to pitch them?" Tamara asked. Alicia stood and smoothed her blouse. "I'm going to show them exactly who they'd be in business with. And I'm going to do it with every ounce of composure they think I don't have." The final dinner was meant to be the crescendo. Formal dress, assigned seating, a roaring fireplace casting golden light on a long oak table draped in linen. It was the kind of scene that graced business magazine covers, old wealth posturing as open-minded, tradition cloaked in civility. Tamara, notably, was not invited. "She's staff, right?" Meredith had asked Grant earlier that day. "No," he'd replied, jaw tight. "She's Alicia's COO. Still, the answer hadn't changed. Tamara stayed behind, fuming. Alicia entered the room alone. She wore a deep emerald wrap dress that hugged her frame like it had been sewn for this exact battle. Her hair was pinned high, her expression unreadable. She looked like she belonged there, which, perhaps, was the real offense. She scanned the place cards. Her seat was nestled between Trent and Delilah. Grant sat across from her. Richard Sr. presided over the table like a Roman senator. Dinner began with chilled crab salad and a toast. "To progress," Richard said, raising his glass, "and to partnerships that push us into the future." Alicia clinked her glass with those around her. She didn't drink. Conversation drifted from shipping lanes to inflation metrics. But beneath the polite banter, the air buzzed with something sharper. Delilah leaned over. "I have to say, I'm impressed. You've handled this whole week with such poise. It's not easy being the only woman in the room." Alicia gave a cool smile. "I'm rarely just the only woman." Trent chuckled, a little too loud. "Touché. But come on, Alicia, you've got to admit, it's a little funny. You walk into this family legacy like a disruptor. Makes the rest of us look like fossils." I didn't walk in to look like anything, she replied. I walked in to bring value. Grant jumped in. Exactly. This deal, it's about evolution. Innovation. It's symbolic. Alicia's gaze moved slowly around the table. Let's just hope the symbolism doesn't distract from the substance. Quiet. Just for a beat. Then the servers arrived to clear the plates. Wine glasses refilled. And that's when Richard Whitford Sr. decided to speak again. I'll tell you what I don't get, he began, swirling his scotch like it was holy water. This obsession with representation. Diversity in leadership. Used to be you hired the best person for the job. Now it's quotas and PR strategies. A few heads turned. Grant visibly winced. Dad. No, Richard continued. I'm just saying, boardrooms used to be about merit. Now they look like marketing campaigns. No offense. He turned to Alicia. She didn't blink. None taken, she said calmly, placing her napkin on the table. But when people say no offense, they're really just asking you to stay quiet while they offend you. Richard leaned back, unfazed. I'm just speaking truth. Then here's some truth for you, Alicia said, voice steady. I didn't build Neuralink because I was anyone's inclusion hire. I built it because no one else could solve what I did. My company isn't a charity case. It's the future of your dying industry. Silence. Even the waiters froze. Delilah cleared her throat. Well, this got intense. Alicia stood, hands relaxed at her sides. I've been called articulate, aggressive, intimidating, sometimes all at once. But rarely have I sat at a table this expensive and heard someone so proud of being wrong. Grant opened his mouth, closed it. Trent shifted awkwardly. Richard smirked and lifted his glass again. You've got fire. I'll give you that. Alicia didn't move. I have something more important than fire. He raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Options. Then she turned and walked out. Past the roaring hearth, the imported wine, the portraits of Whitfords gone by. She walked with purpose. Quiet. Unshaken. Back in her suite, Alicia closed the door and stared at the deal packet laid out on her desk. The pitch was ready. The numbers were clean. But something else had settled into her chest, something colder than the Montana wind. Her phone buzzed. It was Tamara. I heard, she said softly. Alicia didn't speak at first. They really think I need this deal. You don't, Tamara replied. I know, Alicia said. But tomorrow, they're about to find out just how wrong they were. The next morning would bring contracts, investors, and the chance to change everything. But Alicia wasn't just coming to close the deal. She was coming to finish what she'd started, on her own terms. The Montana dawn was cold, the sky a relentless gray that seemed to press against the towering pines. Inside the Whitford estate, everything was still polished and pristine, but Alicia felt the tension like a living thing tightening around her. By 8 a.m., she was in the executive lounge, an oak-paneled room where old money met new ideas. The fire crackled softly, the hum of espresso machines punctuated the silence. Alicia's portfolio sat under her arm, her laptop was open, slides ready to project. A USB drive, her secret weapon, nestled in her coat pocket. Grant Whitford arrived first, all smiles and forced warmth. Alicia, he said, pouring himself a black coffee. Let's pretend last night never happened. No pretending needed, she replied. Let's just get to business. Others drifted in, Delilah, Trent, 2 legal advisors, and finally Richard Sr., wearing the same worn Patagonia vest as yesterday, like a uniform for his empire. Alicia stood before the fireplace, the screen behind her ready to illuminate the future of logistics. She began with quiet confidence. Neuralink isn't just about future-proofing shipping. We're creating a neural network, a predictive logistics system that moves faster than any human supply chain ever could. Diagrams flashed, dynamic routes, data-driven forecasts, AI-powered drones. Graphs pulsed with real-time data, maps with shifting supply chains. The room was wrapped. She clicked to the next slide. Here's the integration timeline. Assuming this partnership remains viable, Neuralink's technology can be deployed within 18 months. Silence fell. Richard Sr. leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. Impressive, he said, voice casual but calculating. Though all these fancy charts and AI jargon are a bit much, you've clearly done your homework. Grant jumped in, eager to please. What my father means is... Richard cut him off sharply. No. I'll say it plain. You're impressive, Alicia, especially coming from, well, where you come from. Alicia blinked slowly, registering the thinly veiled insult. And listen, Richard went on, smirking. Companies like yours need a little edge, a story. Woman founder, minority founder, all that. It's marketing with melanin. Works like a charm these days. The room went cold. Everyone stopped breathing. Alicia locked eyes with Richard. You said what? She asked, voice steady. I said it's smart, he replied, chuckling as if this were a harmless joke. Grant shifted uncomfortably. Dad, you're out of line. Richard laughed it off, like it was a debate in college. Nothing serious. But Alicia didn't flinch. She reached into her coat, pulled out the USB drive, and walked to the table. Here's my final offer, she said, placing it before Grant. What's this? He asked, flipping through the documents. You removed the equity share, he demanded. Alicia nodded. And the revenue split? He frowned. Gone. There's nothing left, he said, incredulous. This is it, she said calmly. Richard scoffed. So, after all this, you're just walking away? Alicia folded her hands, unwavering. I came into this house with an open mind. You fed me wine and insults. Mistook me for a caterer. Talked about me like I wasn't here. Told me my accomplishments were a marketing ploy. Richard shrugged. So, you're going to let your ego cost you $900 million? She leaned in slightly. No. I'm letting my standards keep you from accessing what I built. The room held its breath. She turned toward the door. You think you hold all the power, she said without looking back. But the world's changed. You just haven't caught up. Outside, the mountains held their silence, indifferent to the drama unfolding inside. By lunchtime, the estate was suffused with an uneasy calm. Alicia's suitcase sat half-packed beside her bed. She wasn't rushing, but she wasn't lingering. Tamara knocked, entering quietly. They're panicking downstairs, she said. Alicia didn't look up from her phone. They should be. Bradley was on a call with legal. They didn't expect you to walk. Alicia finally looked up. Because women like me don't usually get to. Tamara nodded. Not in rooms like this. The weight in the room wasn't pride or vengeance. It was a stillness, the quiet power of someone choosing themselves in a place that had always pretended they didn't matter. Suddenly, a knock at the door. It was Grant. Can I talk to you? He asked, avoiding Tamara's eyes. Alicia stepped into the hall, careful not to invite him in. Grant looked exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from realizing you may have just lost a future. Look, he began. I know my dad was out of line. I tried to stop him. Alicia's face remained unreadable. Don't make this harder than it has to be, he said. You've got something real. We can smooth this over. Rewrite the press strategy. Tell the story right. Rewrite what, Grant? She asked. That I was humiliated but stayed for the check. He hesitated. It's not about staying, he said. It's about being smart. Alicia stepped closer. No, she said firmly. Being smart is knowing that tying my legacy to a name that casually disrespects me in front of witnesses costs more than $900 million. It costs every person watching who believed dignity still meant something at the top. Grant rubbed his jaw, frustrated. "You're really not going to budge?" "I'm already gone." She walked back inside and closed the door. Downstairs, Richard paced, muttering to Trent. "You give them too much rope. They think they're in charge." Trent said nothing. Delilah, sitting near the fire, spoke quietly. "Or maybe she just didn't need us as much as we thought." Richard waved a hand dismissively. "We'll find another partner." Delilah looked at him, unblinking. "Not one like her." By mid-afternoon, Alicia and Tamara quietly left the estate. No farewells. No fanfare. Just a winding drive bordered by pine trees and a heavy silence. As their private jet soared over Montana's rugged peaks, Alicia exhaled for the first time in days. Tamara leaned back, arms crossed. "What now?" Alicia gazed out the window. "Now," she said softly, "we tell our story. And we do it our way." As the plane disappeared into the clouds, the headlines were already racing across the globe, and the Whitford family was about to discover that walking away quietly doesn't mean walking away weak. By the next morning, the news had exploded. Headlines screamed across business networks and social media feeds. Neuralink CEO walks away from $900 million deal after disrespect at private summit. Alicia Monroe makes bold exit from Whitford partnership. Tech visionary stands ground, sends shockwaves through industry. Alicia hadn't released a statement yet. She didn't need to. Someone inside the Whitford estate, likely one of the younger legal aides, had leaked details to a San Diego reporter. The story spread like wildfire. Comments poured in from all corners. This woman just did what 10 corporate DEI teams couldn't. She didn't ask for a seat at the table, she built her own. $900 million? She said no. That's power. The Whitfords were caught off guard. Grant scrambled to contain the damage. He issued vague statements about strategic realignments and cultural differences. But his words only stoked the fire. Meanwhile, Alicia chose her moment carefully. When she finally agreed to speak, it wasn't on a major network with polished producers and scripted questions. It was on a Black-owned business podcast, recorded in a cozy Baltimore kitchen, just Alicia, her voice, and a simple kitchen table. The host leaned in and asked the question everyone wanted to hear. What would you say to young women watching this who think they have to tolerate disrespect to succeed? Alicia didn't hesitate. I'd tell her this: you don't climb the ladder just to sit next to people who laugh at you behind closed doors. You climb to change the view. To build something new. Who builds the ladder? We do. In the weeks that followed, Neuralink announced a new strategic alliance with a coalition of minority-owned manufacturing and shipping companies in Arizona and Oregon. No legacy names. No old money. Just innovation, mutual respect, and rapid growth. The market responded immediately. Neuralink's shares jumped 14% in 3 days. Investors loved the story, the vision, the undeniable strength behind Alicia Monroe's leadership. But Alicia didn't celebrate publicly. She got back to work. Back in Oakland, she walked through Neuralink's headquarters, watching her team gather around prototypes, timelines, and blueprints for the next generation of shipping drones. These were real people building real change. No legacy. Just a legacy being made. Tamara caught up with her outside the conference room. You good? Alicia smiled slightly. Better than good. Some execs had already started asking if she'd speak at the next big industry summit, a keynote slot reserved for those who shaped the future. Tamara teased. You thinking about it? Alicia paused. Tell them I'll think about it. Still worried about how you looked walking away? She shook her head. No. I'm thinking about how many people never realized they could. Some deals are worth more than money. Some exits are louder than press releases. Alicia didn't walk away because she lost. She walked away because she won something bigger, her self-respect. And in doing so, she gave permission to every young leader watching, every woman told she wasn't enough, to do the same. Final reflection. If you find yourself in a room where your value is questioned, where you're tolerated but never respected, ask yourself, is the check worth the cost? Because sometimes the boldest move you can make is walking away. And as Alicia looked ahead, the industry was only just beginning to catch up to the power of her story, and the legacy she was building on her own terms. The ripple effects of Alicia Munro's bold exit spread far beyond the polished boardrooms and mountain estates. News outlets and social media buzzed with debates. Was she brave or reckless? Visionary or fool? But Alicia had no time for second-guessing. Back at Neuralink's Oakland headquarters, she walked past glass walls etched with the company's mission: innovate, disrupt, empower. Her team looked up as she entered the room, eyes reflecting admiration and relief. They had stood by her through every uphill battle, every slight, every late-night strategy call. One afternoon, Tamara approached her with a hopeful smile. Alicia, the coalition in Arizona wants to fly you out for a leadership summit next quarter. They're offering the keynote. Alicia's lips curved into a small smile. Tell them I'll consider it, she said. I want to inspire more than just my company. Her phone pinged with an incoming message, an invitation from a national women's leadership conference. She paused, then replied, "Count me in." Meanwhile, the Whitford family scrambled to recover. Their PR team worked overtime, spinning stories of strategic differences and market realignment, but the damage was done. Investors were wary. Partners questioned their judgment. The business world watched closely. For Alicia, this was the moment she'd been building toward, not just to lead Neuralink, but to redefine what leadership meant. She appeared on panels, podcasts, and interviews, not as a cautionary tale, but as a beacon. Her message was clear: respect isn't optional. It's foundational. Success doesn't come from fitting into someone else's mold, it comes from shattering it. At a conference in Seattle, she stood before thousands, her voice steady and sure. Too many are told to stay quiet, to accept less than they deserve. I'm here to say, no. You are worth more. You belong. The crowd erupted in applause. Backstage, a young woman approached her, eyes shining with tears. You gave me the courage to speak up at work, she said. Alicia smiled, the weight of the moment settling in. As Neuralink's partnerships flourished, Alicia focused on innovation. The team launched the first prototype of autonomous shipping drones capable of navigating complex urban landscapes, a feat no other company had achieved. Investors poured in, recognizing Neuralink not just as a tech company, but as a movement. Yet, despite the rising success, Alicia remained grounded. She spent evenings mentoring young entrepreneurs, hosting workshops, and advocating for diversity in tech. Her journey wasn't just about one deal. It was about opening doors, breaking ceilings, and rewriting the rules for those who would follow. One crisp autumn morning, Alicia received a call that surprised her. It was from a prominent tech consortium inviting Neuralink to join a prestigious innovation alliance. The message was unmistakable: Neuralink was no longer the disruptor. It was the standard. Alicia sat back, reflecting on the path she'd carved, from the garage in Oakland to boardrooms around the world, from being mistaken for staff to becoming a keynote speaker. She had transformed rejection into resilience, disdain into determination. And through it all, she had remained true to herself. As Alicia prepared to step onto the stage for the biggest keynote of her career, a new challenge loomed on the horizon, one that would test not only her business acumen but her very ideals. Would she rise to meet it, or would the pressures of legacy and power threaten to pull her under? The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as Alicia Munro stepped onto the stage. Hundreds of eyes, investors, entrepreneurs, journalists, and young dreamers, fixed on her. The air was thick with expectation, but Alicia's calm confidence filled the space. She adjusted the microphone and looked out over the crowd, seeing reflections of her own journey in countless faces. She began. When I was invited to join a $900 million partnership with one of America's most powerful families, I thought it was a victory. But I soon realized the real battle wasn't just about business. It was about respect. About dignity. About standing firm when others expect you to bend. Her voice softened, but her resolve never wavered. I walked away from that deal because I refused to sacrifice who I am, and the values I built my company on, for the comfort of legacy. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. This isn't just my story. It's the story of countless women and people of color who are told to smile through discomfort, to play small so others can feel big. I say, no more. The crowd erupted in applause, but Alicia held up a hand. We're not just asking for a seat at the table anymore. We're building new tables. Tables where innovation, inclusion, and integrity aren't just buzzwords, but foundations. She shared her vision of a future powered by diverse voices, bold ideas, and unyielding courage. After the keynote, Alicia was surrounded by supporters. Among them was a young woman who approached her shyly. "Your story gave me hope," she said. "Thank you for showing me I don't have to settle." Alicia smiled warmly. "We all rise by lifting others," she replied. Back in her office, Alicia gazed out at the Oakland skyline. The city that had once been a backdrop for her struggles was now the heart of her legacy. Neuralink's impact was growing, from coast to coast, innovating how goods moved and how people connected. But beyond the tech and the headlines, Alicia's greatest achievement was something less tangible, yet far more powerful. She had shown that self-respect, courage, and integrity could be the fiercest weapons in any boardroom. Epilogue. Months later, the Whitford family released a statement acknowledging Neuralink's success and their own missteps. It was too late. Alicia Monroe had already rewritten the rules. She wasn't just a CEO. She was a trailblazer. A beacon for every young leader who dared to dream differently. Closing reflection for viewers. If you're in a space where your value is questioned, where respect is conditional, remember Alicia's journey. Walking away isn't defeat. Sometimes, it's the first step toward winning on your own terms. Thank you for following Alicia's story. If it inspired you, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph. Your journey starts now. Bell speech balloon thumbs up.